My name is Melissa Carter. For the last 12 months, I've been working in the freezing wilderness of Alaska, patching wounds, saving lives and counting the days until I could hold my 15-year-old daughter, Lily, again, every month like clockwork. I sent $2,000 home to my parents in Ohio. Money meant for Lily's food, her school, her comfort. I thought I was giving her the stability I couldn't give while serving far away, but when I finally walked through that familiar front door and asked softly, "Was the money enough for you two this year?" Lily blinked in confusion and whispered the words that still echo in my mind. "What money?" My parents froze. My mother's hands trembled around her coffee mug. My father looked down at the floor like it might swallow him whole. And in that moment, I knew something had gone terribly wrong. 18. No, $24,000 had vanished. Money that was supposed to keep my daughter safe had simply disappeared. What would you do if the people you trusted most, the ones who raised you, were the same ones who betrayed your child? I wanted to believe it was a mistake, but as I looked around that house, the brand new furniture, the shining SUV in the driveway, the diamond bracelet glinting on my brother's wife's wrist, the truth began to take shape, and it was uglier than I could ever imagine. Over the next few days, I would uncover secrets buried beneath layers of guilt, lies, and love twisted into something unrecognizable, and what started as a missing money mystery would end up tearing apart 3 generations of my family. So if you've ever trusted the wrong person, if you've ever wondered what really happens behind closed doors when family and money mix, stay with me, because what I discovered next didn't just change how I saw my parents. It changed everything I believed about family itself. Before we go further, if you need to step away, or if you want to hear more stories like this one, go ahead and hit subscribe right now. That way, when life pulls you away, you'll never miss what comes next, because in this story, what comes next will leave you breathless, and somewhere at the end of it all is a truth so shocking, so heartbreaking, yet strangely healing, that I promise, it's worth staying for. So tell me, what would you do if your child looked you in the eye and asked, "What money?" The first thing that hit me when I stepped back into my parents' house was how warm it felt. Not just the heat from the fireplace, but the smell of cinnamon, pine, and something that used to mean home. I stood there, frozen for a moment, staring at the framed photos on the wall, all polished and rearranged, like someone had been trying to rewrite the past. "Mom?" I called out softly. From the kitchen came her familiar voice, just as bright as I remembered. "Melissa. Oh, sweetheart, you're home." She rushed out, arms open, apron dusted with flour. For a moment, I let her hug me. I wanted it to feel the same, but it didn't. Her perfume was different, stronger, expensive. Behind her, my father appeared, slower, quieter, older somehow, but there was a flicker of something in his eyes. Guilt, maybe? Then came Lily, running down the hallway barefoot. She threw her arms around me, nearly knocking the breath out of my chest. "Mom! You're really here!" Her voice cracked with joy, and I felt my throat tighten. That moment was worth every sleepless night in Alaska. We sat down together, laughing and crying all at once, and for a brief second, I believed everything was okay again, but as I looked around, the details started whispering a different story. The kitchen, hut remodelled. White marble countertops, modern fixtures, a new stainless steel fridge. The living room, filled with new furniture I'd never seen before, and parked outside, through the window, a sleek grey pickup truck that gleamed like it had just left the dealership. "Dad," I said lightly. "New truck?" He hesitated just long enough to notice. "Oh, that old thing. Found a good deal." His smile didn't reach his eyes. At dinner, I tried to ignore the uneasy weight pressing on my chest. We talked about Lily's school, about how fast she was growing, about the neighbours and the weather, but the warmth at the table felt staged, too practiced, Too careful, like everyone knew a secret I wasn't supposed to find out. When Lily mentioned that her soccer team had gone on a weekend trip, but she couldn't join because Grandpa said money's tight, my fork froze. Mid-air, money's tight? I'd been sending $2,000 every month. Even after rent and savings, that was more than enough for them to live comfortably. So how could money be tight? I glanced at my mother. Her smile wavered for a fraction of a second before she filled my plate again. Oh, she's exaggerating, Mum said quickly. You know how teenagers are. Always wanting more. But I looked at Lily's sweater, the same one she wore last winter, stretched at the elbows. A small hole near the sleeve. Her jeans were faded. Her shoes scuffed. She looked healthy, but not taken care of. Do you like school here? I asked her later. As we unpacked the gifts I'd brought from Alaska, a small carved necklace, a warm parka, a book she'd asked for months ago. It's okay, she said softly. Grandma says we have to save money now that Grandpa's business isn't doing well. That was strange. My father had retired years ago, living comfortably off his pension and savings. Business? I asked. She shrugged. That's what Grandma said. I brushed her hair behind her ear and kissed her forehead. Inside, I was trying to piece together a puzzle that didn't make sense. Later that night, I couldn't sleep. The walls creaked the way they always had, the old house breathing in the cold winter air, but it wasn't the sound that kept me awake. It was the memory of Lily's confused eyes when I mentioned the money earlier that evening. What money, Mom? She'd asked just like that first time, and I'd brushed it off, too afraid to push further in front of my parents. I slipped out of bed, wandering through the dark house. My father's study door was slightly ajar, inside stacks of bills, folders, and a brand new desktop computer, still shining under the dim lamp. Next, to it sat a bottle of bourbon and a receipt from a local. Dealership, down payment, $20,000. Same model as the truck outside. I took a shaky breath and stepped back into the hallway. Just then, I heard the crunch of gravel outside. Through the front window, a pair of headlights swept across the yard, the grey truck. But it wasn't my father driving. It was my brother, Jack. He stepped out, whistling, tossing his car keys in the air like someone who'd just won the lottery. He looked different, new leather jacket, fresh haircut, a smug grin. When he spotted me watching from the window, he froze for a second, then smiled. Melissa, he said, walking up the porch steps. I didn't know you were back. Just got in today, I said carefully. Nice truck, he laughed. Oh yeah, Dad helped me out. Family sticks together, right? Family. The word echoed like a warning. He patted my shoulder as he walked past me into the living room, greeting my parents like he owned the place. My mother's eyes flicked to mine, full of nerves, and that's when I knew. This wasn't just about my parents anymore. Something much bigger and darker was hiding behind their polite smiles and Christmas decorations. I watched my brother laugh with my father, sipping bourbon like he belonged there, and one thought wouldn't leave my mind. If Lily never saw the money, and my parents swore they struggled to make ends meet, then why did my brother suddenly look like he was living someone else's dream? That night, after everyone went to bed, I lay awake listening to the whisper of the wind outside. It rattled the old shutters, creaked the floors, like the house itself was trying to tell me something. I used to love that sound when I was a kid. It meant safety, warmth, family. But now every creak felt like a secret waiting to be uncovered. Sleep wouldn't come, so I slipped quietly into the hallway and walked toward the kitchen. The soft glow from the nightlight spilled over the counter, and there on the table sat my mother's purse. It was open, carelessly left, like she'd been distracted. Inside, I noticed a folded piece of paper, a bank receipt. It wasn't her handwriting on the deposit line. It was Jack's. A transfer, $2,000. The exact amount I'd been sending every month. I froze. The date on the receipt matched my last payment from Alaska. My hands trembled as I set the paper down. Had they given my deployment money to him? Why? A soft voice broke my thoughts. Couldn't sleep either. I turned. My father stood at the doorway, robe tied loosely, a tired look in his eyes. He used to seem so strong, unshakable. Now he just looked small. I was just getting water, I said. He nodded, stepping into the light. I know you're wondering about a lot of things, but Melissa, your brother's been struggling. Lost his job months ago. We helped him out. With my money? I didn't mean for my voice to sound sharp, but it did. He sighed, rubbing the bridge of his nose. You don't understand how hard it's been. He's family, and we took care of Lily. That's worth something too. Worth something, I repeated quietly. Dad, I didn't hire you. I trusted you. He looked away. We just did what we thought was best, but his voice cracked on that last word. Best. When I went back to my room, the warmth I'd felt earlier was gone. It was replaced by something cold, crawling up my spine. For the first time in my life, I didn't recognize my own family. The next morning, I tried to keep things normal. We had breakfast together, pancakes, syrup, laughter that didn't sound real. Lily sat beside me, cheerful but quiet, glancing between me and my parents like she could sense the tension, to quiet. Breakfast. My mother suggested we all take a walk to the lake. Just like old times, she said. The lake was half frozen, the air sharp and silent. I watched my parents walk ahead of us, their shadows long and thin on the snow. Lily slipped her hand into mine. Mom, she whispered, did I do something wrong? My chest tightened. Of course not, sweetheart. Why would you think that? She hesitated, kicking at the ice. Grandma said you were mad because I told you about the money. She said I shouldn't have mentioned it. My breath caught. So they were trying to silence her. Sweetheart, I said softly, kneeling to meet her eyes. You did the right thing. You always tell the truth, okay? Always. She nodded, but I could see the confusion in her eyes, the kind that only comes when a child realizes the adults aren't who they seem. That night, I called my old friend, Dana, a financial officer I'd met during deployment. She'd handled my automatic transfers to my parents each month. I needed answers. Dana, I have to ask, I said quietly over the phone. Can you check where exactly those funds went? Sure, she replied. Give me a few minutes. I could hear her typing in the background, the faint hum of her office computer. Then, silence. Melissa, she said carefully, your transfers went through perfectly every time. Same account ending in 7412. That's my parents' account, I said. Actually, she hesitated, that account was changed about 2 months into your deployment. The new account holder was Jack Carter. I felt the blood drain from my face. Are you sure? Positive. The change was confirmed by email from your mother's address. It's all documented. When I hung up, my hands were shaking so badly I nearly dropped the phone. Jack, my brother, the one who used to borrow $20 from me in high school and never pay it back, the one who always said, family helps family. He hadn't just borrowed this time, he'd stolen from me, from Lily. I didn't confront him right away. Instead, I watched. That's something the army teaches you, patience. You don't strike until you're sure. The next day, Jack stopped by again. He joked with my father, helped himself to coffee and dropped his car keys on the counter, the same keys from the new truck. Attached was a silver keychain, engraved with, to Jack from Mom and Dad, we're proud of you. Proud of what? I wondered. I kept my expression calm even when he winked at me. "Still settling back in, sis?" he asked. "Trying to," I said. "By the way, I looked at Dad's bank account last night. Funny thing, some of the transfers have your name on them." For just a split second his smile faltered, then it came back, sharper this time. "You must be mistaken," he said easily. "I don't mess with Dad's accounts." "Maybe not directly," I said. "But you sure seem to be doing well lately." He leaned against the counter, lowering his voice. "You've been gone a long time, Melissa. You don't know what it's like here. Things got hard. We all did what we had to do." "We?" I repeated. He smirked. "Don't dig too deep, sis. You might not like what you find." And then he left. Just like that. No guilt, no shame. Just that same smug grin. I stood there, gripping the edge of the counter, heart pounding. Outside, his truck engine roared to life, and as it pulled away, the tail lights cut through the snow like a warning. I knew then that this wasn't just about money. It was about loyalty, betrayal, and a secret my family had been hiding long before the first dollar ever went missing. And whatever it was, I was going to uncover it, even if it meant tearing my family apart to find the truth. The next morning, sunlight poured through the curtains, but it felt cold, almost sterile. The house looked the same, quiet, peaceful, but I couldn't unsee what I knew now. Every corner, every photograph, every word out of their mouths felt staged. At breakfast, my mother was humming softly, flipping pancakes like nothing in the world was wrong. My father read the paper. Jack was gone. Lily was at the table, drawing in her notebook, her little brow furrowed in concentration. I watched them all and realized I didn't belong here anymore. Not in this version of family. After breakfast, Mum suggested we visit the local farmers' market. Something light, cheerful. I agreed, mostly to keep her calm. As she drove, she talked endlessly about the neighbours, the church bake sale, the new Christmas decorations she ordered online. But I wasn't really listening, because in the glove compartment, half open, I could see a printed email. The subject line, "Account transfer confirmation." The sender, Military Federal Bank. My stomach dropped. When she got out to pay for some apples, I quietly pulled out the paper. It was dated 7 months ago, 2 months after I'd deployed. The signature at the bottom was unmistakable. Margaret Carter, my mother. And beneath it, authorization for a new beneficiary, Jack Carter. I folded the email carefully, slipped it into my coat pocket, and pretended nothing happened. On the way home, I couldn't stop staring at her hands on the steering wheel, the same hands that had tucked me in at night, braided my hair, bandaged my scraped knees. Now those hands had signed away my daughter's future. "Mom," I said quietly, "why did you change my account information last spring?" Her hands tightened on the wheel. The car drifted slightly before she corrected it. "I don't know what you mean," she said too quickly. "Yes, you do," I replied softly. "I saw the email. You authorized a transfer to Jack's name." For a long moment there was only the sound of tires on gravel. Then she whispered, "Melissa, please, not here." When we got home, she went straight to her room and closed the door. I waited in the living room, my heart pounding with every tick of the clock. Finally, she came out, pale, trembling, holding a small photo album I hadn't seen in years. "Sit down," she said. I did. She opened the album, and there, between the old family photos, was one I'd forgotten existed. Jack, about 16, standing beside a wrecked car, his face pale and haunted, and next to him, my father, arguing with a police officer. "I thought this was just a fender bender," I said slowly. It wasn't, she whispered. It was worse. There was a girl in the other car, 19. She lived, but barely. The hospital bills. They could have ruined us. I frowned. But that was decades ago. She nodded. Your father used his business connections to make it all disappear. We paid the family quietly, out of pocket. We said it was an accident. No one needed to know. But Jack, he never forgot. And neither did I. She looked at me, eyes glassy. He always said I owed him my loyalty for keeping the secret, that without us he would have gone to jail. So when he came to me, desperate, saying he'd lost his job and needed help, I thought I was making it right. Her voice broke. I never meant to hurt you, Melissa, or Lily. I thought he just needed time. I thought I could fix it before you came home. For a long moment, I couldn't speak. All I could hear was the sound of my own heartbeat, heavy and uneven. So you used my daughter's money, I said finally, to pay for your guilt. She covered her face with her hands, crying silently. I didn't think you'd notice. You were so far away. I just wanted peace in this house. Peace, the word hit like a knife. How many lies had been told in the name of peace? I stood up slowly. You didn't buy peace, Mum. You bought silence. She looked up at me, eyes red. Please, Melissa, don't tell your father everything. He doesn't know about the transfer. It would destroy him. I stared at her, realizing the full weight of what she'd done. She'd protected Jack, deceived me, and now wanted me to protect her. The cycle of secrets was endless, and I was done with it. I won't tell him, I said finally. Not yet, but I'm going to fix this. All of it. That night, after Lily went to bed, I sat by the fireplace with the album open on my lap. Every photo told a story I thought I knew. Birthdays, graduations, Christmas mornings. But now, they looked different. Like every smile hid something underneath. When my father came in to pour himself a drink, I didn't move. He looked at me, hesitated, then said quietly, Your mother's been upset. You shouldn't push her. Did you know? I asked softly. He froze. Know what? That she changed my account. That Jack's been using my deployment money. His eyes widened. Real shock, not the rehearsed kind. No, Melissa, I swear. But I didn't let him finish, because I knew from his expression. He was telling the truth, for the first time. I realized this web of deceit wasn't just greed. It was built on something much older, a promise made decades ago. And now, that promise was unraveling. I watched the fire flicker and thought about my mother, sitting upstairs crying into her guilt, and my brother, out there somewhere, driving his brand new truck, bought with stolen money. I'd spent my life healing. Strangers. Now it was time to stop, patching up other people's wounds, and start cleaning out the infection, in my own family, even if it meant cutting deep. For the next few days, I moved through the house like a ghost. Every smile, every conversation, every breakfast around the table felt like a scene I didn't belong in anymore. I had come home expecting love and rest. Instead, I was living in a quiet battlefield where the enemies shared my last name. Mum avoided my eyes. Dad pretended nothing was wrong, and Jack, well, Jack acted like he had already won, but I wasn't done yet. One evening after Lily had gone to sleep, I called Dana again. She answered right away. She must have sensed the urgency in my voice. Dana. I need a full audit of all transactions connected to my deployment account, I said. Every transfer, every authorization, every name that's touched that money. She hesitated. You're talking about private financial data, Melissa. Even for you, that's restricted. I know, I said quietly. But this isn't about me anymore. My family's involved, and I think something illegal's been done. There was a pause, then the sound of quick typing on her end. All right, she said finally. Give me a few hours. When the email came later that night, I opened it with shaking hands. wasn't just a list of transactions, it was a map of betrayal. Every monthly deposit I'd made was split within 24 hours. Half stayed in the main account, the one under my parents' names. The other half was routed into something called MC Family Fund, a secondary account created 4 weeks after I deployed. The account holder, Margaret Carter, my mother, but there was a second name listed under authorized access, Jack Carter. My pulse quickened. She hadn't just given him my money. She had given him access to create something entirely new. I scrolled further. There were withdrawals, large ones, into businesses I didn't recognize, a payment to Midwest Auto Financing, a transfer to a private credit union in another state, and one transaction that made my stomach turn. Deposit into a joint business account under Jack Carter and Amanda. Louis Amanda, my mother's best friend, the woman who used to babysit me. I stared at the screen in disbelief. They'd been building something. A small company, maybe, funded by my deployment pay. When I called Dana again, my voice was steady but cold. "Can you trace that last transfer?" "Already did," she said grimly. "It's linked to a limited liability company, registered 6 months ago. Guess whose names are on the paperwork?" "I don't even want to ask," I whispered. "Jack Carter and Amanda Lewis," she said. "Address matches your parents' house. Melissa, it looks like they used your money to start a business." For a long moment, I couldn't breathe. My daughter had been selling her belongings, working before school to buy food, while her uncle used that money to buy a company. I closed my laptop and stared into the dark. The fire in the living room had burned low, throwing shadows across the floor. In the faint light, I could see my mother's favourite Christmas angel figurine on the mantel, delicate porcelain, halo slightly chipped. I wondered if she saw herself in that angel, pure, forgiving. But forgiveness has its limits. The next morning, I drove into town alone. I stopped by the local courthouse and requested business filings for the company name Dana had given me. The clerk was polite, curious even. When she handed me the file, my heart sank further. Under Capital Source, the listed origin was personal funds provided by M. Carter, active military service member. They had used my deployment as their cover. My name, my rank, was written in black ink on their documents, as if I had funded the whole thing willingly. It wasn't just family betrayal anymore, it was fraud. That evening, I called my old commanding officer, Captain Rivera. He had retired the year before, but when he heard my voice, his tone changed immediately. "Melissa?"
"What's wrong?"
"I need help," I said simply. "Legal help, quietly." He didn't ask for details, just said, "I'll put you in touch with someone from JAG, someone I trust." Within hours, I was speaking with a calm, steady voice on the other end of the line. Lieutenant David Hall, military attorney. I told him everything. When I finished, there was silence. Then he said, "You understand what this means, right? If they used your name and funds without consent, that's federal fraud." "It's serious, Melissa." "I don't want to destroy them," I whispered. "I just want to protect my daughter." "I understand," he said. "But you can't protect her without protecting yourself. Start gathering everything. Documents, receipts, copies of emails, statements from your bank contact. I'll handle the rest." When I hung up, I realised my hands were steady for the first time in weeks, because now I had a plan. That night, I quietly copied every financial document I could find in the house. Receipts, credit card statements, old notebooks from my mother's desk. One piece of paper caught my eye, a handwritten note tucked inside a drawer. It was in Jack's messy handwriting. "Mom, remember to keep the story straight. We used Melissa's account as collateral. No one needs to know. Promise me. Collateral." The word burned into my mind. Collateral for what? The next morning I found out. My father was in the garage, tinkering with an old radio. When I stepped inside, he looked up and said softly, Melissa, I think you should talk to your brother. Why? I asked. He sighed. Because the bank called. Something about the business loan. My breath caught. What business loan? He looked at me then, confusion turning into realization. That awful dawning moment when a person understands the ground beneath them isn't solid anymore. What has Jack done? He whispered. I stared at him, at the man who'd taught me right from wrong, and said quietly, maybe it's time we both found out. And for the first time, I saw fear in his eyes, but not anger, not denial, real fear. Because deep down, we both knew this wasn't just about missing money anymore. It was about something much darker that Jack had pulled all of us into, and I was just beginning to uncover how deep that trail of lies really went. It was 3 days before Christmas when everything came undone. The snow had fallen overnight, thick and quiet, covering the world like a lie you wanted to believe was beautiful. But under that stillness, something dark was waiting. I woke early, the kind of early that comes with worry. Downstairs, I could hear my parents whispering, that same low, sharp tone they used when they thought I couldn't hear them as a teenager. Now, those voices meant only one thing: damage control. I stood in the doorway, just long enough to hear my father say, "She's digging, Margaret. If she calls the police, it's over for all of us. All of us." The words hit, harder than I expected. He wasn't afraid for Jack, he was afraid for himself. Stepped into the kitchen quietly. They froze. Mid-sentence, "Good morning," I said softly. "Planning the Christmas menu or the cover story?" My mother's face drained of colour. My father's jaw tightened. "Melissa, let's not start this again." "No," I said, my voice calm but steady. "We're not starting anything. We're finishing it." Before either of them could answer, the front door opened. Jack walked in, shaking the snow from his jacket like he owned the place. "Morning, everyone. Wow, smells like tension and regret in here," he joked. No one laughed. "Jack," I said, "we need to talk." He raised an eyebrow. "About what? My coffee preferences or my sister's sudden attitude problem?" I gestured toward the dining table, where I'd laid out the printed documents, bank statements, transfers, the forged signature forms. His smirk faltered the second he saw them. "I know about the account," I said quietly. "I know about the business, the fake authorization, the money you stole. And I know Mum helped you start it." My mother looked down, tears already forming. Jack's expression hardened, the mask of arrogance cracking just slightly. "You don't understand," he said finally. "I understand perfectly," I replied. "You took money meant for Lily. You built a company with my name. You used Mum as your shield. You lied to everyone." He laughed, that hollow, bitter laugh that people use when they're cornered. "Oh, come on, Mel. You think you're the only one who's ever been used? You went off playing hero while the rest of us tried to survive here. You don't know what it's like to be the failure child. That's what this is about?" I asked, incredulous. "Some decades-old jealousy." He slammed his fist against the table. "You always got everything. Their attention, their praise, their pride. You were the soldier, the survivor, the perfect daughter. I was just the mistake they had to hide." The words hung in the air, sharp and venomous. I took a slow breath. "You could have built something honest, Jack. You're not a failure because of me. You're a failure because you chose lies over love." He stepped closer, his face inches from mine. "You think you know the truth? You don't. You never did." And then he looked over at our father. "Tell her," he said. "Go on, Dad. Tell her whose idea it really was." The room went still. My father's eyes widened, panic flickering behind them. "Jack, don't! Tell her!" Jack shouted. "Tell her you're the one who told me to fix the books. That you said Melissa's account was safer than ours. That you told me we could borrow from it until things turned around." I turned slowly toward my father. He didn't deny it. He just sat there, silent, broken. The air left my lungs. "You..." You told him to do this. He rubbed his face, voice barely a whisper. It wasn't supposed to go this far. The construction business was failing. We had debt, bad deals, tax audits. I thought it was temporary. We just needed a little time, so you used my money? I said, disbelief shaking every word. You let him steal from me while you watched my daughter struggle. He stood up, voice rising. You don't know what it's like, Melissa. Losing everything you built, watching your family crumble. Don't you dare talk about losing family, I said sharply. You didn't lose us. You sold us. No one moved. The only sound was the old clock ticking in the corner. Finally, my mother spoke, her voice trembling. I begged him to stop, but he said he'd fix it before you came home. I swear, Melissa, we never meant for you to find out. But I did, I said quietly, and now everything's broken anyway. Jack tried to laugh again, but it came out hollow. Look, you got what you wanted. The perfect story for your next moral crusade, the good soldier betrayed by her greedy family. Congrats. I looked at him, really looked at him, and for the first time, I didn't see my brother. I saw a stranger in my family's clothes. You think this is about me? I said softly. It's about Lily. She worked weekends at a cafe to buy her own shoes while you bought yourself a business. She sold her father's locket for a calculator. And you call me selfish? Something flickered in his expression. Maybe guilt, maybe fear, but it was gone in an instant. I gathered the papers into a folder and turned toward the door. I'm done talking, I said. Next time we speak, it'll be with lawyers. My father took a step forward. Melissa, please. But I stopped him. Don't. You had 9 months to make it right. You didn't. Now it's my turn. As I walked out into the snow, the cold hit me like a slap, but it felt cleaner than anything inside that house. Behind me, I could hear my mother sobbing, my father's low voice trying to calm her, and Jack shouting something I couldn't make out. I didn't turn around, because for the first time since I'd come home, I finally knew where I stood, and it wasn't with them. The morning after the confrontation, the world outside was buried in snow, thick, untouched, silent. It was beautiful, but also cruel, like the calm that comes after a storm that's only just begun. Lily and I packed our things before the sun was fully up. She didn't ask questions, didn't say a word. Sometimes children know when words are useless. As we drove away, I looked in the rearview mirror one last time. My parents' house, the same one I grew up in, was barely visible through the white haze. I didn't cry. There are moments when tears don't help. They just blur the truth. At the motel on the edge of town, I made a few calls, one to Lieutenant Hall, my military attorney, one to Dana, for updated records, and one to my friend Kate, the same woman who had helped Lily while I was gone. Kate didn't hesitate. Stay here, she said. You and Lily can have the guest room. No questions asked. That night, as Lily slept peacefully in a real bed for the first time in days, I sat by the window and made a promise to myself I would not let this break me. Not again. 2 days later, I met with Lieutenant Hall over video call. He'd gone through all the files I'd sent, the bank transfers, the forged authorizations, even Jack's note. Melissa, he said, his tone professional but kind, what they did is serious. We can pursue restitution through civilian court or military family protection channels. But you need to be prepared for what that means. I'm prepared, I said. What I'm not prepared for is letting them get away with it. He nodded. I'll file the preliminary paperwork. But one more thing. He paused, scrolling through his notes. Did you authorize any withdrawals from your father's retirement account? My stomach twisted. What? No, why? There was a $30,000 transfer made 2 days ago, he said carefully. It was flagged because your deployment pay was used as collateral for that account. That's unusual. I froze. Where did it go? He looked down at his screen. To Jack Carter. Direct deposit. For a moment I couldn't breathe. The betrayal wasn't over, but it was evolving. "Melissa," Hall said gently, "your father might be trying to cover up what your brother did. If so, you'll need to move fast before that money disappears." I ended the call, my pulse pounding. $30,000. He had drained his retirement, not for survival, but to bury evidence. The same man who had once taught me that honour means doing the right thing, even when no one's watching. Now he was doing everything wrong. In plain sight, I called him that evening. He answered on the second ring. "Melissa," he said, sounding tired, almost rehearsed. "Don't," I said. "Don't pretend this is fine. I know about the transfer." He was silent for a long moment, then, "You don't understand?" "No," I interrupted, voice shaking. "I understand perfectly. You're trying to buy Jack out of trouble with money you don't even have." "Do you really think that will fix this?" he sighed. "He's my son, and I'm not?" That silence cut deeper than any word he could have said. "Dad," I said softly, "every time you cover for him, you're not saving him. You're teaching him that betrayal doesn't matter. That lying has no cost. That hurting people is forgivable if you're family." His voice cracked. "You think I don't hate myself for this? You think I don't see what I've done? Then stop doing it," I whispered. "For once, just stop." He didn't answer. When he finally hung up, I realised that was the first time in my life I'd spoken to my father as an equal, and the first time I'd seen him as human. Not strong, not wise. Just deeply, painfully human. That night, I told Lily the truth. Not all the details, just enough. Her eyes filled with tears, but she didn't cry. She reached for my hand and said quietly, "It's okay, Mum. I just want to be somewhere we can be happy. Somewhere we can be happy." That's all she wanted, and maybe that's all I ever wanted too. The next morning, I went to the bank in person. The manager, a kind woman named Evelyn, had already received legal notice from Lieutenant Hall's office. She sat across from me, sympathetic but professional. "Mrs. Carter," she said, "your father withdrew the funds in cash. We've frozen the remaining balance pending investigation. Do you know where he went?" I asked. She hesitated, then slid a note across the desk. It was a printout of the withdrawal form. At the bottom, scrawled in his handwriting, was a short line. "For Jack. To make things right." I left the bank with that note burning a hole in my pocket. For Jack. Always for Jack. My father's loyalty had become his curse. That evening, Kate found me sitting by the kitchen window, staring into the dark. She set a cup of tea beside me and said, "You know, forgiveness doesn't mean letting people hurt you again." I smiled faintly. "Then what does it mean?" "It means you stop letting what they did control what you do." Next. Her words stayed with me long after she went to bed, because she was right. This wasn't about punishing them anymore. It was about breaking the pattern, so I drafted an email to Lieutenant Hall, told him to proceed with the restitution claim, and to file for financial recovery in full. No more mercy. No more waiting. Before hitting send, I looked over at Lily sleeping on the couch, her face peaceful in the dim light. I thought of everything she'd lost, and everything we still had. Then I whispered to myself, "We're not victims anymore. We're survivors." And with that I pressed send onto the fallout had begun, but for the first time, I wasn't afraid of what came next, because the truth, as painful as it was, finally belonged to me. It's strange how quiet justice can be. No shouting, no flashing lights, just the slow turning of gears you never realised were moving. It had been a week since I filed the claim. The snow outside had turned to slush, ugly, heavy, half-melted, the perfect reflection of how I felt inside. Every morning, I woke up before dawn, brewed my coffee, and stared at the same small window in Kate's kitchen. The world kept moving. Traffic, kids walking to school, people laughing, but my family's world had stopped. Then one morning, my phone rang. It was Lieutenant Hall. "Melissa," he said, "we've moved your case to federal review. There's a development you need to see." Federal, that word hit like ice. He sent the files through encrypted email, and I opened them slowly, like unwrapping something poisonous. There were dozens of documents, bank records, business registration, tax filings, but one stood out immediately, a life insurance policy, filed under Melissa Carter, dated 4 months ago. Beneficiary: Jack Carter. I read it twice before the meaning sank in. They hadn't just used my money, they'd used my name. Hall's voice came through the phone, steady but grave. The policy was discovered during a fraud audit connected to your brother's business. He claimed you as the insured party, listed your social security number, your military ID, and even your deployment address. The premium payments came directly from the business account you told us about. I swallowed hard. What does that mean? It means your brother didn't just commit financial fraud, Melissa. He committed identity theft, an insurance fraud tied to federal records. This could carry serious penalties. I pressed my hand against my chest, trying to breathe. Somewhere in the background, Lily's laughter drifted from the living room. Faint and innocent, I clung to that sound, because it was the only thing that still felt pure. Hall continued. "We've already alerted federal authorities. They'll contact you soon. I need you to be prepared for interviews, and possibly court testimony." "Court," I whispered. "Against my own family?" He paused. "I know that's hard, but this isn't just about family anymore. This is about criminal intent." After the call, I sat in silence for a long time. Then I opened my laptop and stared at the photo on my desktop. Lily and me at the beach. Before deployment, we looked happy, sunburned, tired, but safe. I wondered what kind of man my brother had become, what kind of mother my mum had been, to let this happen, and what kind of daughter I'd become to finally say, enough. That afternoon, I drove to my parents' house. I didn't plan to confront them, I just needed to see it one last time. The driveway was empty. The Christmas lights still hung, but half of them were burnt out, flickering weakly in the cold wind. The house looked smaller than I remembered, fragile. Even when I knocked, my father answered. He looked older, not just tired, hollow. "Melissa," he said quietly. "You shouldn't be here." "Maybe not," I said. "But we both know this is where everything began." He stepped aside, letting me in. The air inside was heavy, the kind of silence that follows after too many lies have been spoken. "Where's Jack?" I asked. My father hesitated. "Gone. He left 2 days ago. Said he needed time to run." I asked. He didn't answer. "Dad," I said softly, "did you know about the insurance policy?" His eyes widened. "What insurance policy? The one where Jack pretended to be me. The one that could send him to prison." He sank into the old armchair by the fireplace, face pale. "I told him to fix things," he whispered. "Not make them worse. I thought if he paid you back—" "He wasn't paying me back," I interrupted. "He was betting on my death." The words tasted like poison. He looked up sharply, horror dawning in his eyes. "No," he said, shaking his head. "No, he wouldn't." But we both knew he would, because Jack didn't think about consequences. He thought about opportunity. My mother came down the stairs then, holding a small box in her hands. Her eyes were swollen, her voice soft. "He called me," she said. "He said he was sorry, that he never meant for it to go this far." "Did he say where he's going?" I asked. She hesitated. "Chicago. He's meeting someone from the business. He said it's about money, fixing paperwork." I almost laughed. Mum, if he's meeting anyone, it's a lawyer or a buyer. He's liquidating before they freeze his accounts. She sank onto the couch, whispering. We raised him better than this. I wanted to believe that, but belief doesn't change the truth. I looked around that living room. The same walls that had once held birthdays, holidays, laughter. Now it felt like a crime scene. Melissa, my father said suddenly. You're not going to press charges, are you? He's still your brother. I turned toward him slowly. Dad, if I don't... He'll keep doing this. To someone else. Maybe even to you. He looked down at his hands, trembling slightly. I just wanted to protect this family. I nodded. You did. But you protected the wrong person. I walked toward the door. Before I left, I turned back one last time. Tell Jack when he calls. The law's already looking for him. And this time there's nothing you can do to save him. Outside, the wind had picked up. Snow began to fall again, soft and relentless. It covered the driveway, the porch, the footprints behind me, erasing everything as if it had never been there. I stood there for a moment, breathing in the cold, and for the first time I didn't feel broken. I felt free. The reckoning had begun, not just for them, but for me too. Because sometimes the only way to save what's left of a family is to let the old version of it die. 3 weeks later, the call came. I was sitting in Kate's kitchen, watching the snow melt from the roof. When my phone buzzed, Lieutenant Hall's name lit up the screen. They found him, he said. Jack Carter was arrested this morning in Chicago. Fraud, identity theft, insurance falsification. It's over, Melissa. For a long time I couldn't speak. The words hung there between us, cold and heavy, like the air before a storm. Over, I repeated softly. But the thing about endings is, they never really feel like endings. They just feel like silence. 2 days later, I got another call, this time from my mother. Her voice was small, fragile. They're letting him make one call before transfer, she whispered. He asked for you. I closed my eyes. Part of me wanted to say no. Part of me wanted to let the silence speak for me. But the truth is, no matter what he'd done, Jack was still my brother, and sometimes closure requires looking the pain right in the eye. The next morning, I went to the detention centre. The guard led me into a grey room, all metal and glass. Jack was already sitting there, wearing the standard orange jumpsuit, his hands cuffed in front of him. He looked smaller, not the arrogant man I'd faced weeks ago, just a boy lost in his own mistakes. He looked up when I entered. Hey, sis. I sat down across from him. Jack. For a while, neither of us spoke. Finally, he said, You were right. About everything. I didn't want to be right, I said softly. He smiled sadly. That's the difference between us. We sat there in silence again. Then he slid a folded envelope across the table. For Lily, he said. My last gift. I didn't move. What is it? Something I did right. For once. The guard gestured that our time was nearly over. Jack leaned forward, voice low. Tell her I never meant to hurt her. Or you. I just didn't know how to stop once it started. I nodded, tears blurring my vision. And then, for the first time since this all began, I said the words I hadn't been able to say before. I forgive you. He looked surprised. Why? Because holding on to hate is just another kind of prison, I said quietly. And I'm done living in one. The guard opened the door, signalling the end. As I stood, Jack called after me. Hey, Mel? I turned. You were always the good one. Don't let us change that. I left the room without answering. Sometimes silence says enough. That night, back at Kate's house, I opened the envelope. Inside was a key and a handwritten note. For Lily. Open when the time is right. It's under my name. But it's hers now. I frowned, unsure what it meant. until I noticed a small logo at the bottom, a local credit union. The next morning, I went there. The banker led me to a private room and handed me a folder. Inside was a balance. Statement for a trust account. 42,000. Jack had opened it months ago. Every extra dollar he'd made from the fraudulent business he'd hidden here, not for himself, but for Lily. I sat there, speechless. It didn't erase what he'd done, but it reminded me that even the broken parts of people can still hold love. When I told Lily about it later, she didn't cry. She just said quietly, "Maybe Uncle Jack wasn't all bad." "No," I said, smiling through the ache. "He wasn't all bad. Just lost. We decided to leave the money where it was, not as a debt, but as a lesson. It would be her college fund, her start at something new, something untainted." Spring came early that year. The snow melted fast, revealing patches of grass and forgotten footprints. I'd transferred to a new base, one without deployment rotation, so Lily and I could finally build a life that didn't keep breaking apart. Sometimes we visited my parents. It was awkward at first, small talk and long silences, but healing rarely begins with comfort. It begins with truth. My father had started therapy for guilt and anxiety. My mother began volunteering at a local support centre for military families. They were trying, and that was enough. One evening, as Lily and I sat on the porch watching the sunset, she asked, "Do you think we'll ever be a normal family again?" I thought for a long moment before answering. "No," I said softly, "but maybe we'll be an honest one." She nodded, resting her head on my shoulder, and for the first time in a long time, I felt peace, not because everything was fixed, but because I'd stopped pretending it ever could be. When I look back now, I don't see betrayal anymore. I see lessons written in pain, writ about boundaries, forgiveness, and the quiet strength it takes to start over. Family doesn't always mean safety, but it can mean growth, and sometimes that's the greatest gift of all. So if you've ever been hurt by the ones you trusted most, if you've ever stood in the ruins of what you thought family meant, remember this. Healing isn't about going back. It's about building something truer in its place. And maybe, just maybe, that's what Jack's last gift really was. Not money, not redemption, but the reminder that love, even broken, can still change us. If this story touched you, take a moment to subscribe to When Family Breaks, because every week we share true stories of heartbreak, forgiveness, and the courage it takes to begin again. And tell me in the comments, what would you do if forgiveness was the only way to heal? When stories like Melissa's end, they rarely truly end. They linger. In the quiet moments, when you pour your morning coffee or fold the laundry, or catch your reflection and see the weight of years behind your eyes. Because betrayal within a family isn't just about lost money or broken promises. It's about the invisible scars left on trust. And the question that never really goes away, how do you love someone who has hurt you so deeply? What makes this story so powerful isn't the confrontation, or even the legal justice. It's the quiet kind of courage, the kind that chooses forgiveness without forgetting. The kind that understands peace is not the absence of pain, but the acceptance of it. Melissa didn't win because she got her money back. She won because she refused to let bitterness define her story. She turned pain into purpose. And through her daughter, she gave that lesson a future. You see, for many of us watching right now, the details may differ. Maybe it wasn't money. Maybe it was trust or time, or love that was stolen. But the ache feels the same, doesn't it? That slow burn of realizing someone you called family saw your kindness as weakness. And yet, somewhere in the middle of that heartbreak, there's still a choice between anger that hardens your heart and forgiveness that frees your soul. So I want to ask you, if you were in Melissa's shoes, would you forgive? Would you give your family a second chance? Or would you walk away and never look back? Tell me in the comments. Your story might help someone else find the courage to heal. And if this journey spoke to you, if it reminded you of something you've lived, or lost or learned, then take a moment right now and subscribe, because every week we share stories like this, real stories of heartbreak, resilience, and the quiet kind of strength that lives in all of us. Stories that remind us that even after the deepest betrayal, love can still find a way to rise again, and maybe, just maybe, the next story will help you understand your own, so stay a while. There's more to tell, and somewhere in these stories, you might just find a piece of yourself.